Welcome back. If you're just joining, this is still Daybreak on Trust Television, and of course, it's the newspaper review segment of the program. As is customary, I have a copy of the Daily Trust with me. So let's take a look at the front page of the Daily Trust. Lead story on the Daily Trust says, Presidency to withdraw controversial tax reform bills. NEC demands more consultations. Proposed legislations not against North, according to Onanuga. Top of the story there says, flood kills 321 in 34 states, affects 1.4 million people. That's a really sad figure there. Also, top bank executives under probe, according to the EFCC. We've not received any payment for petrol from marketers, Dangote says. Of course, I know this is coming on the heels of the fact that he had mentioned that he has over 500 million liters, of stock, but then no marketers coming to purchase. Other stories on the Daily Trust says, 16 die in Ibadan building collapse. Page 8 has that story. And also, Nigeria gets 2.8 billion naira from Google for A1 talent hunt. And Zenith Bank posts 1 trillion naira pre-tax profit. Story is on page 28. On the belt, we have criticisms. Trails Ekiti lawmakers planned retreat to Canada. And these are some of the stories on the front page of the Daily Trust. We now go quickly to the Punch newspaper. Lead story on the Punch says, tax review. Presidency mounts defense as 36 governors reject proposal. NEC asks President to withdraw bill from NAS. Tinubu panel says bill not against governors. This is developments coming on the heels of 4 tax bills that were forwarded to the National Assembly by the President earlier in the week. Other stories there says Ipman can lift petrol without NNPCL approval. This is according to the Dangote refinery. 12 federal government MDA salaries to be delayed. You want to know why? Well, page 19 of the Punch newspaper has more details of that story. And also, federal government offers 9-month window for free forex deposit. This is adorned with a picture of the central bank governor. Also, FG striking varsity workers, talks end in a deadlock. And another story there says, flooding, NEC plans new dams for southeast and also south-south. Crashed helicopter wreckage found. 3 passengers remain missing. And this is an update on the helicopter that was initially carrying some NNPCL staffs that crashed, of course, in the Atlantic. And now these are some of the stories on the Punch, and we go to the last paper that we'll be looking at this morning before the review starts, the Guardian newspaper. And of course, the big story on the Guardian says, from third world to superpower, how to lift millions from poverty to prosperity via local initiatives. And the big story there is captured on pages 4 and 5. Proscription, appeal court reserves judgment on IPOB's appeal. And also, FX crisis. FG gives Nigeria 9 months to deposit dollars in banks. And on tax reform bills, NAS adjourns plenary abruptly as NEC advises immediate withdrawal. And also, Rivers NLC threatens shutdown as Wabara PDP coalition warn of crisis escalation. Zenith Bank PLC records 1 trillion. Of course, that story is also captured in the Daily Trust. And our relationship must be win-win, Tinubu tells France, China, and Denmark. How we improved land administration in Edo. This is according to Obaseki. And also, EFCC recovers 248 billion naira, $105 million in 1 year. Talk about recovery and also redeployment of these resources to benefit Nigerians. That's the big question. And finally, government media are partners in nation building, says Information Minister. And this is as a result of on the heels of a meeting that had happened at the Ministry of Information with other senior information officers in the federal government. But then that's it for the Guardian newspaper. And now joining us in the studio to provide some perspective and also analysis on some of the stories on the front pages of these papers. We have in the studio Malam Nuruddin Abdallah. He's the editor of the 21st Century Chronicle. He joins me this morning looking like the governor of Niger State. Perhaps if he's leaving, he will leave some palliatives with us. But then, welcome to the program, editor.
Thank you, Mr. Sabir.
So, the presidency is planning to withdraw the controversial tax reform bills from the National Assembly. Perhaps you can start with your submissions on that one.
Yes, why is he withdrawing it?
Well, first of all, maybe I should even ask this question. It seems like the president has been doing a lot of reforms. A lot of bills has found its way to the National Assembly. I mean, I cover the Senate in the National Assembly, and a lot of times you see the other paper riddled with a lot of executive bills, mostly around tax, mostly around revenue generation. Perhaps this is where the president or the federal government is focusing a lot of its attention.
Yes, I think because he needs money to do so many things. That is one. But I'm curious because why the controversy over the 4 tax
and why are governors
reforms exactly? The governors are not against the governors, in particular northern governors. They started it. Mm-hmm. We are not against the increments. They are not against the company tax. They are not against the collapsing of the
revenue generating
all
structures.
The 60-something revenue generating agencies into one. It's Nigeria Revenue Service. They are principally, if the communique they issued in Kaduna after the meeting with traditional rulers, they anything to go by. This derivation-based value-added tax.
Mm. What does it mean?
They are insisting that why is it that we consume service, but we don't get the VAT for those services because the company that provides that service is headquartered in Lagos, for instance. Take MTN. All the banks are in Lagos, so they pay their taxes in Lagos. Excuse me. Even though the calls generate from, let's say, Zamfara to Tinubu and what have you. And they have branches, let's say, of all banks have branches across the north. That's the argument. And what does it mean for an ordinary Nigerian like me? It means there are governors, in particular from the north, are angry that these reforms will cut some part of their money, what they get at the end of every month. VAT is part of the FAC accruables, you remember. So why is it for Mr. Sagil? Why is it for me? They handed the traditional rulers to Kaduna. They handed them to Abuja, all the governors, because their interest, their sole interest is affected. If, for instance, they are serious, which they will never be with this scenario, they can galvanize support, they can build consensus. There was a consensus among almost all the 19 northern governors were in Kaduna. Minus few of them, maybe I saw Kano, Senate, Deputy, and some other governors. Almost all the governors were at the NEC meeting yesterday. Because it involves money. And they are going to lose money. That's it. So if, for instance, they have galvanized this opposition when Tinubu withdraw petrol subsidy, wouldn't have been where we are today. They went to sleep when petrol subsidies were removed arbitrarily by the president. But now, since there are plans to just cut their share of the VAT, they are now angry. Let me conclude this way. There are states in the north in particular that earn less than 3 billion pre-May 2023, before Tinubu came. With the subsidy removal at the Eagle Square, now that particular state is earning 10 billion. But the commonwealth of the electorate in that state, at the state capital, at the local government levels, at the villages, at the hamlet, has not changed.
It's not getting the value.
Rather, they have lost in the last 1.5 years their humanity, People who can afford 3 square meals are now resorted to begging. But the government at the federal capital, at the state level, is earning almost 3 times what they used to earn before subsidy was removed.
So why are we complaining about value-added taxes when there's no value?
Because if that reform takes place, it will cut some parts of their receipts. That is why the governors rose in unison. They rose from their slumber. They hardened the traditional rulers who are in their pockets. They were in Kaduna, they were in Lagos, they were in Abuja. If they have done that when Tinubu removed subsidy, something would have been done drastically.
Well, I mean, another thing to mention, of course, is the situation currently being experienced in the north. Talk about the blackouts. I know partial restoration, like they said, has been restored in some states, but that is contestable as well. But we saw the body language, especially of some of these people who I dare say are also seen as the leaders in the north. Also, we saw the likes of the ACF come out to say, look, we are thinking that this is politically premeditated and all of that. I want you to speak to especially the body language when it comes to issues like this. Why is it that the moment when something happens, there's always an immediate or a deliberate attempt to make it political or to make it ethnic?
Let me speak without any political. Okay, where was ACF when Buhari was there for 8 years? Yes. They had been sleeping, snoring. It is now that a Southerner has been elected as president that they interpret everything into politics. Don't take them serious, please. But I saw a former minister now who was alleged to have stolen billions. Now he has become a hero. Footages of him speaking is being shared by some gullible northerners. Buhari was there for 8 years. You are saying that we have only 330 kVA towers in the north. One just Kaduna. Buhari was there for 8 years. What has he done? Tinubu is here for only 1.5 years. He was there for 8 years. Look at the Kaduna Abuja road. When Buhari came, there was no, we can leave this place and go to Kaduna by midnight. You can go to Kano by midnight. What happened?
Kaduna,
the
Abuja,
people mandated with the protecting Abuja were being killed, the gas brigade. People are being taken away from their houses inside the federal capital, inside the city center. Buhari was there. We kept quiet.
And now
when this electricity issue, what has he done? Because of the gap, education gap in us. The most educated of us are those whose level of thinking is not beyond that of Meshai. Yes, that is it. What are we doing? We are just buying transformers and what have you.
But even these transformers are even getting vandalized. I mean, see the situation.
Whose fault is it? I heard somebody talking about it. You remember those things? It is now an indictment on our security architecture that the TCN personnel cannot access the Shiroro axis because of bandits. In an era that from his office, his palatial office in the villa, the NSA can see this country. Satellites, maps, drones, or whatever. We are to Kano. Every day, the chief of air staff was in Europe recently, buying. And now you are telling us that some TCN staff. And look at it this way. Is it the same thing? Ask any of the operational people of the telecom companies. When there are cables that are buried, we are vandalized. From their office, they know where the incident takes place, and they deploy people immediately. But here we have towers that are limited, that they were vandalized. You sit down in Abuja, you don't even know the place. We saw some people, I said it last week, so like local hunters with cutlasses Is it not a shame? A country of 220 million, we are grappling with 4,000 megawatts.
Editor, I mean, it's one thing to say the transmission lines were affected, and it's another thing again for the transmission lines not to be affected and for households and businesses to get access to stable power. So while we are blaming the transmission lines, perhaps don't you think the discos also have some share of the blame? I mean, we had the spokesperson of the discos here who told us about the activities of Nigerians who continue to steal energy one way or the other. But is this enough?
What are they doing? You know, you talk politics, everything is politics.
Perhaps
2013,
deliver your
when Jonathan privatized these things, they were not privatized to the right people. Look at all the owners. Do CSC search.
You think cronism?
Of course, that's what took place. People that were responsible for the collapse of the distribution chains were the people that were auctioned off with zero financial capability. Take Kaduna Disco, for instance. It changed hands how many times? They borrow money from the banks. Again, yes, we understand. Yeah, you bought it. Even to manage it, they put on cronies, in-laws, who were behaving like traditional rulers. There was a particular MD of a particular disco in the Northwest that was behaving, he was more powerful than the Emir of Kano. The House of Reps committee visited that place. They interfaced with some of the... There was one enterprise, the biggest customer in Kano at that time. He was kept waiting for almost 6 hours.
Interesting.
The MD traditional ruler was sitting in his office. The man has to relocate back to Lagos.
Traditional ruler. Well, that's another one. But then, unfortunately, we have to bring the program to an end because the director is in my ear and is really shouting, "Time is up, time is up, time is up." But then again, editor, it's always a pleasure to have you. I mean, provide perspectives and analysis on these developments, and I'm sure that our viewers love having you on the program to provide this very apt perspective. It's always a pleasure to have you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Part of the program. And to our viewers, thank you so much for being a part of the program and for following from the beginning up until this point. For those who tried calling during the phone-in segment of the program on Daybreak Interactive and were not able to do so, unfortunately, that's a sad situation. And then, of course, you would find opportunity to do that subsequently. But then it's a wrap for me. Thank you so much for being a part of it. Do have a lovely weekend. My name is Sagir Ibrahim, and up next is 360 Sports. Do stick around.